My friends, I want to thank you for watching this video. If you like what you see, please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell. And if you think you're already subscribed, please check to make sure YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you without your permission. It happens every day. And if you really like what you see, please consider becoming a channel member or even leaving a super thanks donation to help keep us going. I promise to answer each and every one I receive. Thank you for watching, my friends, and now, on to the video. My friends, have you ever wondered, how is something as wretched, as stupid, as hideous, as toxic to human cognition as Star Trek Discovery made? How could anything as awful as Star Trek Discovery, or STD as I call it, ever get produced, much less displayed on video screens for unwitting human beings to accidentally stumble upon and be scarred for life? How in God's name did such a misbegotten piece of worthless cultural vandalism ever get made? Well, my friends, Harvey Cthulhu has stumbled across an article on ScreenRant.com wherein Alex Kurtzman himself reveals the unholy process by which NuTrek, or Kurtzman Trek as I call it, actually gets produced. In this modern age, when the food we eat and the drugs we consume are tested by government agencies to make sure they're safe for human consumption before they reach the marketplace, how did a disease of the mind such as STD, devoid of even the most rudimentary entertainment value, slip past all cognitive safety nets, rip open our collective skulls, and take a shit right on our brains without any warning whatsoever? It haunts me, ladies and gentlemen. It haunts me that something this pernicious, this idiotic, this defective could be allowed to take a steaming dump in our skulls, lower our intelligence and our standards with no warning. The first episode of STD premiered for free on CBS, and yet somehow CBS was never sued for false advertising for putting the name Star Trek on something that was at best a parody of Star Trek and at worst a concentrated blast of malicious hatred for everything that Star Trek represented. There isn't anything else in pop culture I fucking hate worse than STD. It was only because of STD that I started my channel, alarmed as I was that such an abomination was not only produced, but actually broadcast to an unwitting nation. And I've always wondered if STD and all of Kurtzman Trek was evidence that Western civilization was poised to collapse just like the Roman Empire did. At least the Romans had an excuse for the collapse of their society. They were drinking wine out of lead containers because the lead enhanced the flavor. But after decades of drinking lead, they were all as crazy as a bunch of rats in a fucking coffee can with a tiny TV in it showing STD on a 24-hour loop. So of course, their entire empire had to collapse. But holy shit, people, we don't have that excuse. So why is there a tiny portion of our population so screwed up they would actually classify STD as entertainment? Have we been invaded by pod people? Was there some weird stretch of time where babies in the US were no longer spanked at birth, but kicked in the head by a syphilitic mule? Boom! Welcome to the world, kid. Here's a kick in the head from Mr. Canker and a subscription to Paramount Plus.
Dude, calm down.
Hey man, I was just trying to fathom how our society went so tragically wrong as to produce something as disgusting as STD.
Well, man, I read an article on Screen Rant titled, How New Star Trek Shows Are Made Explained by Executive Producer. And in it, Kurtzman talks about the process for producing the show.
No, don't tell me. Let me just take a guess at exactly how Kurtzman Trek is produced before you actually tell me what he said. Just let me see how close I can get to the mark before you reveal what Kurtzman said, okay?
Okay, dude. Shoot.
Basically, a room full of monkeys are given typewriters and a lot of fiber. The monkeys shit on the typewriters. Mr. Cankers, the aforementioned syphilitic mule, then kicks a random secret hideout writer-producer. The writer-producer staggers into the monkey room, the writer's room, containing the monkeys pooping on the typewriters, peers through the stars and tweeting birds circling their head, and looks for promising piles of poop to develop into a script idea. Once located, the writer-producer carries the poop on a silver platter to Alex Kurtzman's desk. And a few days later, you get a script about locating cloaked Klingork ships using sonar in space, or maybe Spock now has a human sister, so that Sarek can finally figure out if humans and Vulcans can coexist despite having coexisted with a human wife for these many years and actually producing a baby with a human. Oh, I left out the ritual sacrifice to Wokablo, the patron demon of shitty writing. That happens beforehand to guarantee that no monkey will take a poop adhering to Star Trek canon. Bad monkey, how dare you adhere to canon? How am I doing, Harvey? Did I nail it?
Well, frankly, I suspect that you did nail it, but that's not what Kurtzman's had to say in this article. In the article, he says, quote, "It's a communal conversation," meaning I talked to the head of the studio, David Stampf, who's been incredibly supportive from the beginning, from Discovery's launch. And then we go and we talk to the Paramount Plus folks and we tell them, here's what we're thinking. In order to get this show, we're going to need to start planning really 2 years ahead, which means you have to start putting things in development. It's actually a small group of people. And then once you figure out what show everybody wants to make, then it becomes a question of what it costs to make it.
It costs your soul. That's what it costs. Along with your ability to call yourself a writer, and if you have any self-awareness at all, it costs your self-respect to make an episode of Kurtzman Trek. When you have a blueprint of how to make a successful Star Trek show from I don't know how many seasons before you actually started, and you throw that blueprint away and say, where Star Trek was bright and optimistic, I'll make it dark and hateful. Where Trek was founded on fascinating ideas, I'll make it as dumb as a bag of nails kicked by Mr. Cankers and crapped on by Metamucil-laden monkeys. Where Trek featured the finest officers mankind had to offer, I'll make mine about a traitorous glory hog who starts wars and fucks everything up that she touches, despite being the bestest ever. When you do that, and you can look at yourself in the mirror, look for a job selling insurance or something, because writing isn't really your thing. And it's incredibly sickening that these clowns see these train wrecks coming 2 years ahead of time and still do nothing whatsoever to stop it.
The funniest part of what Kurtzman says comes later in the article. Quote, "In fact, I think from a dramatic perspective, it's great because it forces you to tell stories that are just focused on character, nothing else. If you say like, sorry, you don't get any explosions this episode, you don't get anything, any of the bells and whistles, you just have to write people in a room. It forces your brain into a different space than you're usually in, which is a great thing. If you're doing it right, it's a great thing for character."
Yeah, well, they're not doing it right. One thing Kurtzman Trek is known for throughout the land is the depth of its dramaturgy. Or rather, should I say, dramaturgy. To call these shallow cardboard cutouts characters is an insult to cardboard, because cardboard has many uses and STD has none. It's funny how in big budget episodes or small budget episodes, not one episode of Kurtzman Trek has ever had even one genuine human moment, not even one great scene, not even a single memorable line, unless you count the lines that are so fucking bad they lodge in your mind like cognitive cholesterol, like Spock saying, "I like math," or Tilly saying, "This is the power of math, people." Jesus. My friends, rumors are flying that Warner Brothers wants to buy Star Trek. Unfortunately, at this time, it appears that the talks between Warner Brothers and Paramount have slowed a bit because Skydance is now having second thoughts and trying to interfere with the process or leverage it to their advantage. And Kurtzman, even at this point, realizes he's done all the damage he can do to Star Trek, and now it's actually his career that's being damaged by all the obvious failures, and all I can say is, it's about time. Can Star Trek be saved? I doubt it. I really do. But I'll consider it, at the very least, a moral victory when Star Trek's cold, dead hands are freed from Kurtzman's bondage handcuffs. There's at least a chance that Warner Brothers could make something better if they manage to get a hold of it, and they do still want it, but the talks have slowed down. But regardless, one thing's for sure. Warner Brothers couldn't make anything worse. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry. Ha 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 ha